everybody, this is Nikki from the design team, and today I'm going to take you through these new circle embroidery hoops, and we're going to look at some of this new stitching dies. I'm going to show you a couple different ways to stitch on these and take a pretty step-by-step guide through stitching on dies and some tips and tricks for that for you. So we'll be using these hearts today and these embroidery hoops and this cute So Glad little stamp set that looks like stitched letters. It's so cute. So since we're stitching on die cuts, we need to get those die cuts done. So I'm going to kind of do a little build montage here. I'm doing white on this fluffy piece and white on what I would call the cross-stitched canvas. It's a little hard to see the dots on this. I am going to have to poke all of them out because I probably should have made my sandwich a little bit tighter. And then I'm using a wooden paper because when I think of a cross-stitch embroidery hoop, I think of a wooden one. Used a little bit of silver for the metal part, and then I'm going to cut my stitched heart out of pink, and I'm actually going to change the color of that pink. I'm going to show you how to do that. So here are the parts that I have. You've got the nice double heart here, and you could add the little small one in the center, but I decided I would just stick with one and make the stitching more interesting. Now, you may ask, why in the world am I cutting this out of pink and then going to add color to it? Well, because this is the color of the floss that I had. I had this bright pink, and I didn't have that color in cardstock. So what I'm going to do is use Party Dress, which is really close to the color of the thread that I have, and just add, just so that it coordinates a little bit better. I'm going to leave it mostly pink, but I'm going to bring this nice darker color along the edges just to make more sense with the type of stitching that I have. So if you only have one color and you don't have any matching cardstock, or you don't want to just do a plain white background, remember you can grab your inks and add to these stitching dies just to create more of a focal point or just to create more coordinated looks. So we'll add Party Dress all around this little double heart, and then I'm going to use that bright pink DMC floss, which is something that I just had in my drawer from previous crafting. If you've never stitched before, they carry it at all kinds of craft stores. So you can go in, it's like 99 cents for a bundle. So you can go pick your color as well. See how close these two colors are? So that's why I added that little bit, just to help coordinate. And I know it doesn't look like a whole lot, but I did add that. So a lot of people will take their thread. There are 5 different pieces of individual thread in these bundles, but I'm going to keep mine pretty thick because we're going to create a fun pattern today. So I am using an embroidery needle, which is a type of needle that is not really sharp on the end, so I don't poke myself in my fingers, and I'll make sure to link that for you in the description. Now, I know there's plenty of needle threaders and such, but I'm just using the old-fashioned way, and I'm pulling this back. So here, when you're stitching on paper, you've got to decide how you're going to adhere the first stitch to your paper. And so I'm going to show you what I do. I pull the string almost all the way out, and I go ahead and get it to the length that I want, and then I'm going to add some adhesive to the back. Now you can do this with glue, or you could do it with some double-sided adhesive. I like using the double-sided adhesive because you don't have to wait for it to dry. Everything that I'm doing today is simple stitching, but I want to think a little bit outside the box of our stitching and think about using it in different ways. So most of the time people stitch around the shape, and I'm going to actually fill in the shape a little bit today just to give it a different look. It's going to have a nice kind of checkered look, and I think that that just gives a little bit more dimension. That's why I didn't use that second smaller heart in the middle, because I wanted to create more of this color. So I'm just taking it through the loops and going in and covering all of my areas in vertical stitching. So generally you're tracing the outline in your simple stitches, but right now I'm going to do a little bit more, and I'm going to just do vertical stitching on this center heart. And you don't want to worry about the lines being too straight. We're filling in this center portion, almost like we're just adding a different color here. So I'm just going to follow along the pattern of that center heart, and I'm just stitching, going in one and out the top. And we're going to fill it in with all these vertical lines. And then when I looked at it, I realized I wanted it to be even more of a pattern just to really bring out that center heart. So what I decided to do was to also do horizontal stitching across this center. So we're going to make a really nice stitched middle. that feels nice. It gives a lot of texture to your card, and it just looks unique, which is nice and fun to do. Now, the fun thing with stitching is sometimes you have to kind of play with how you're going to do this. This heart does not have exact holes on each side, so it's going to make this middle part look a little bit more abstract, which I actually really liked. So we're going to go across and we're going to take these lines across. And then if you want it abstract like this, you can leave it with the lines across, or you can add some more details, which I actually added some more details that made it look just a little bit more polished and really gave it that crazy amazing look. So here's how it's looking. Now I'm going to go ahead. This piece of thread is about gone. So I'm going to use the double-sided adhesive and tape it to the back. And then we're going to add more details that make this look even more polished. Now I love using double-sided adhesive to do this because it's not real bulky, and it really does a good job at holding things down quickly, especially if you're ready to continue stitching versus waiting on glue to dry. So I'm just using little small double-sided adhesive tabs, and then I'm just trimming off my excess. And yes, the back of this will look kind of crazy because it will have so many of those little adhesive pieces on it, but you're not going to see that, and you don't see it through any of the stitching at all. So to make this look more polished, I'm just going to do regular stitching around the outline of the center heart and around the outline of the outside heart. So I'll kind of skip through a few of this. I'm just stitching along each dot and connecting them. So you go in one dot and then you go out the opposite one and come back in. So you're making basically a straight line around this. And let me show you how good this looks. It really gives this center heart more dimension and more definition so that you can tell that it's definitely a heart. And so that little extra time of putting in the stitching around it is really worthwhile, in my opinion. I'm going to jump ahead and show you how I finished out the heart. This is just quick, easy stitching on the outside layer as well. You could leave those little holes if you want to. I just really thought this looks so cute. So I am going to show you some more details that I added to this card. We'll show you how to adhere this to your card the easiest way because it is a little bit bulky. And we'll look at a quick embossing folder idea. Look how cute that is. Oh, just the cutest little heart. We're going to try to keep the rest of this card pretty simple, but I did want to show you a couple things that I did that really added some detail because, it's all in the details. So I'm using Lost Shadow, I'm using pumice stone, and I'm using a little small blending brush. And I'm following the places that are made to look like natural folds in this die cut, just to give a little bit of shadow where it looks like this is actually a piece of fabric that has that shadow in it. So since I'm keeping mine completely white, I thought coming in with a light gray would be nice just to increase the depth and just give it a little bit more dimension with not doing a whole lot. I'm not doing real fancy ink blending. I'm just filling in those little spots with some of this gray, and I go in with a little bit darker pumice stone and add some to each of these as well. Now, I love embossing folders, and this is one trick that's super simple and easy to just add so much detail to your cards. I'm going to start with the pink that I used for the heart, and I'm once again bringing in the color combo of the party dress from Catherine Pooler, which kind of matches that DMC floss that I was using, just to bring all the colors together a little bit. Now, this may seem like a plain background, but we're going to add an embossing folder to it, and it's going to look so awesome. So we're going to be using fine burlap, which is an older folder from Honeybee Stamps. This folder, if you're getting into embossing folders, is a great one because a lot of folders have a kind of a right side and a wrong side, but this one, it makes the texture all over it. So it doesn't really matter how you put the piece of paper in there, you're going to get amazing texture. So I did spray the back of this pink paper a little bit just to give it more flexibility, and look at how awesome this turned out. I'm going to bring it up to the camera so hopefully you can see that dimension. Just beautiful. Next, we took the So Glad which is one of the stamp sets from the new release, and I'm gonna use a sentiment from that. This is the first time using the stamp, so you see you want to always kind of prime your stamps by rubbing on the back. Sometimes there's a little bit of plastic or something on there that you don't get the greatest impression unless you do that. So I'm gonna stamp these in VersaFine Nocturne, and then I'm gonna show you the completion of the card. We'll talk about how to attach a beautiful stitched heart because you do need to do a couple things to make sure that is flat on your paper. So I will show you how I did it. I'm going to zoom in and I'm using some foam tape. This is 2mm foam tape. You can do whatever height you need, but 2mm seems like it covers perfectly. You possibly could go 1mm and still be even with the back. And I'm just cutting it into teeny little strips and putting it along the outside edges. The middle has that adhesive that we'd already put on, and you could take those off and use them to glue the middle, but I actually just leave them on there and only use my foam tape as the actual adhesive for this. So that adhesive in the middle is holding all the stitching, but the adhesive all around the outside edges are those wonderful pieces of foam tape that hold everything else up. Now, when you add your sentiment, if you're going to add it over the heart, you're probably going to need a little bit of foam tape on it. So I decide not to do that, and that way I don't have to stick up the sentiment even further. I'm going to give you a quick solution for something else. So when you do an embossing folder and you've sprayed water on your paper, sometimes it's not exactly flat. Let me show you a quick fix for that. So I'm a stickler for having everything flat so that we don't have any weird edges and things like that. So I'm going to use a little bit adhesive runner, and then I'm going to glue this to a thicker cardstock. So the cardstock that's white, I cut just a little bit smaller than this, and I did my thickest one, which is accent opaque white. And now I'm going to adhere this and really press it down so that this panel stays nice and flat, and that solves the problem. So tell me in comments, have you ever stitched on a card? And if you do, what's your favorite type of stitch? Are you more the simple outline stitch like this? Have you tried something more abstract like I did in the center of the heart? I'd love to know kind of where you are on your stitching. It's a really fun thing to add onto your cards. And it really is something that you can kind of take on the go and stitch on your cards and then come back to it and assemble the card later when you're back. So it's a great thing for traveling if you are one of the people who loves to travel and craft at the same time. Also, if you haven't done it yet, make sure you hit the like and subscribe on this video. This is on the Honeybee channel. You can also see more of Honeybee's products on my channel at Nikki Hearts Cards. I'd love to have you on both. I'm going to use the thanks so much sentiment, and although it looks flat here, there is a portion of it that sticks up just a little bit on the end, and to make that flat, I'm going to need a little bit of foam tape. So I'm going to put foam tape on the end that hangs over the cloth area, and then we're going to use just a little bit of glue on the part that's touching the outside of the embroidery hoop. And that way this sentiment stays flat, it doesn't get bent and look funny if you send this in the mail to someone. So you can always mix your adhesives. Just remember that to get whatever height you need in that sentiment. Okay, let's look at some of this final card. It really looks outstanding. Like all of the Honeybee products, it's really amazing, their die cuts and what you can do with them. Really beautiful. So I hope that you enjoyed this card. Thank you so much for spending your time here with me on the channel. And just make sure you've hit the like and subscribe. I hope to see you again soon. Have a great day. Bye.